I think most of us who played through Henry's latest adventures in KCD2 have had a very enjoyable experience. The game surpassed even my high expectations as a longtime fan of the original, and in my opinion, KCD2 stands as one of the best immersive RPGs ever made. With that being said, I want to share why I believe the upcoming patches, particularly the addition of hardcore mode, will elevate the experience even further. Recently, Warhorse Studios unveiled details about the new negative perks coming with hardcore mode, which is set to release sometime in April. In this video, I'll dive into what the mod is all about, why I'm so excited for it, and why I think you should be too. What I think truly sets KCD2 apart from other RPGs is not only the meticulously recreated historical setting, the detailed and reactive world, and the excellent writing, but above all, it's the level of immersion it offers. From the game's first-person perspective, to its grounded narrative approach and the weight of its choices, every aspect of KCD2 pulls you deeper into its world. The lower stakes and more personal nature of the main story, as well as the side quests, help create an experience that feels very believable. KCD2 excels in making you feel like you're part of its world, even at the default difficulty. But with the addition of hardcore mode, the immersion reaches a whole new level, pushing the core strengths of the game to their absolute limits. It's essentially a way to double down on what already makes KCD2 so good. Hardcore mode is essentially a more immersive and more punishing version of the game's standard difficulty. The stakes are raised and the game demands a higher level of patience and strategy. Perfect for those who want a more difficult and authentic experience. So, let's take a look at what hardcore mode is all about and what makes it different from the standard difficulty. This is what the description in the splash screen when selecting hardcore mode in KCD2 reads. In a little bit more detail, let's talk about the baseline changes we saw in hardcore mode for KCD1, which will give us a pretty good idea what to expect in the sequel. Of course, it remains to be seen whether KCD2 will introduce any new twists or features, but I'm willing to bet the core formula will remain largely the same. Some points may be altered or even removed, and new elements could be added to better suit the sequel, but overall, I think we can expect a similar approach. So, let's take a look at what the hardcore mode in the first game brought to the table. No high-end gear from chests outside of the DLC chest. So the high-end gear is the highest level of gear, tier 3. You're not going to be able to find that in chest. It's going to make the gearing progression much slower. You're going to get less money, which is, I think it's really good, because I think one of the weaker points of KCD2 release version is that gear progression is way too quick. Before the halfway point, well, you can actually, like, the moment you get into Act 2, you can get the best gear quite easily. And that is quite early through the game, like 30%. So slowing that down is gonna be good. The exception is the DLC chest in the first game, and it's probably gonna be the same here. You can probably still find the Brunswick armor. Auto saves from quests are disabled. The only way to save are savior snaps, sleeping in an owned or rented bed, healing at a bathhouse, or save and exit. So this one can be a bit of a controversy for some. I know a lot of people didn't like the way saves worked in KCD1, even on the normal mode. But personally, I think it's a nice challenge, and it makes you take less really stupid risks, and you have to play more carefully. Of course, you can get unlucky and you can die to a bug or something like that and lose progress, but I think with the several tiers of savior snaps in the second game, you're probably gonna have a lot of savior snaps anyway on hardcore mode, so I don't think that is gonna be as much of a problem. Combat is much deadlier for you as well as the enemy. So this is going to depend a little bit on if they're going to make some balance changes and stuff, because right now the enemies die super quickly if you have a good weapon in the end game. You don't even have to have the best weapon, like a one-handed sword with the best perks and stuff, to be able to kill stuff quickly. You can even or two-shot enemies, fully plated enemies with a mace, for example, right now. So I think it depends a little bit. Stuff like arrows are gonna be much deadlier, for sure. Fights with a lot of enemies are gonna be very scary, because it's hard to avoid taking damage when there's a lot of enemies. Unless you have your back to the wall, it's gonna be tough. But you have to be more careful, of course, and I think that's fun. Health potions heal much slower, so that's gonna apply to the marigold decoctions healing over time. It's going to be slower. If you have 2 fights back to back and you took damage in the first fight, you might be still quite low on HP, even if it was a little while ago, so that's the main difference from the standard mode. higher vendor prices for purchases and repairs. So that's basically just gonna, yeah, stuff is gonna cost more, which is, I think it's a great change because you're swimming in the highest tier of armor in the standard mode quite early, so more cost, more grosh and sinks. Love that. Eating from pots only provide 5 nourishment. That's not really a big difference, even though it does make the pots kind of bad. So you have to spend more money on food. You have less money. That's good. No fast travel, no character position on the world map, and no corner positions on the compass. So this is probably the biggest change for hardcore mode, gameplay-wise. You can easily get lost now. You're gonna have to be using landmarks for directions. You can use road intersections, you can use streams, lakes, stuff like overturned carts, shrines. You can ask people for directions if you don't have the perk, if there's people around. If there's no people around, you can use the sun or the moon or the stars to find your way around. It's super interesting and very immersive. Health bar, stamina bar are invisible, same as the combat indicator in the middle of the screen that shows you which direction you're attacking from, and the perfect block indicator. All that is gone, so you're gonna have to look at the arms of your opponent, and you're gonna have to see when they swing to perfect block, stuff like that. It's just less UI, more immersion, good shit. Points of interest and quest markers only appear once you are close. So this makes the exploration matter a lot more. It's gonna make the game world feel bigger and more realistic, especially on a first playthrough. Changes to perks to make the game more challenging. Revenant only works to speed up healing during sleep instead of giving passive regen to 50 or 75%, for example. So I'm not sure which perks are going to be affected in KCD2, but Revenant is most likely going to be one of them. It's basically just nerfing or removing perks that are too strong to feel immersive in hardcore mode. It makes the game a bit more difficult, and that's good. Certain enemies have better equipment, making them harder to deal with. So in the first game this affected one duel, as far as I remember. That he had a helmet, for example. In this, I'm not sure if this one is even gonna carry over to KCD2, but in that case it might just be for dual enemies. Now for the 10 negative perks in KCD2 Hardcore. You're gonna have to choose 3 of these to be able to play on Hardcore mode, and you can pick all 10 of them, and that's going to give a special achievement if you can finish the game with that. I'm gonna go for that, I'm gonna try with all 10.
Your brother to rescue you.
Posey's alive?
A little bloody, but alive, yes.
Where is he?
Outside.
Thanks, Henry. Let's go and see him then.
Mira! Mira! Christ. This whole castle's falling to pieces and this fucking thing's solid as a rock. Mira!
You fellas took your sweet time?
So those are the 10 new perks for KCD2 Hardcore. So Hardcore mode is on the horizon. It's gonna be here sometime during next month at the time of posting this video. I really can't wait for it. KCD2 is gonna become so much better with it and so much more immersive. And Hardcore mode just multiplies what already makes KCD2 so good. I would say if you haven't tried Hardcore mode in KCD1, I think you absolutely have to try it in KCD2. It just makes the game so much better in my opinion. Maybe that might be because the first time I played the KCD1 I did it on hardcore, so I might be biased, but I think if you have the patience for it, definitely try it out. Personally, I can't wait for it, and I'm gonna do my second playthrough on hardcore with all negative perks for max challenge and to try to get the achievement, so that's gonna be fun. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good one.